Part 1. Psychology of Freedom. There are two sentences inscribed upon the Delphic oracle: know thyself, and nothing too much. Upon these all other precepts depend. Plutarch, Consolation to Apollonius. Chapter 2. Freedom is a state of mind. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. And John Milton. Paradise Lost. In a recent argument with a friend or loved one, we may have shown irritation, perhaps anger. Our voice may have been unusually loud, perhaps we shouted and even slammed something around. Now we may regret what we said. Meanwhile, CNN reports that President Bush, stunned when John R. Bolton's nomination for United Nations ambassador hits Republican road bump, is working hard to avoid a political setback at the outset of his second term when senators hold a showdown vote next week. The Christian Science Monitor reports that, from driver's licenses, to passports, to plane tickets, the paperwork necessary to enter and move about America may soon be subject to more restrictive rules, all in the name of Homeland Security. The Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press reports that, truthful publication of information about an arrested juvenile is protected by the freedom of speech, First Amendment even when police unlawfully disclosed the information, a federal appellate court ruled last week. AP reports that, a car bomb exploded during Friday prayers at a Shiite mosque in Baghdad, killing 8 people and wounding 20, police said. Reuters reports that, thousands of villagers rioted in eastern China, injuring dozens of police after 2 of about 200 elderly women protesting against factory pollution died during efforts to disperse them, residents and officials said. BBC reports that, thousands of people have taken part in demonstrations in Nepal, calling for the speedy restoration of democracy and the release of all political detainees. Agence France-Presse, AFP, reports that, more than 300,000 people have died as a result of the conflict in Sudan's Darfur region, British lawmakers said in a report, a figure more than 4 times greater than an official UN estimate. And so forth. What do all these disparate reports have in common? What thread of understanding ties them together, in spite of their diversity? The answer is that they are all manifestations of the essentially mental nature of freedom, or its lack. Of course, material phenomena are described: cheers, smiles, loud voices, combat, wounds and death, perhaps physical destruction, and in some reports, the use of physical weapons. But decisions about freedom, as in American travel and the court case, political confrontations, as in the Senate committee consideration of the Bolton nomination, or conflicts over freedom or its denial are fundamentally all engagements of minds. They all involve perceptions, needs, interests, wills, expectations, esteem, and moralities. This is a fundamental statement of my position. Freedom, and its opposite, subjugation, is in our minds. It is in the minds of men that freedom is fostered or lost. The hand-waving, the smiling, the shouting, that destruction, the weapons, and the deaths are merely the manifestations of mental phenomena. Too often, we focus on these manifestations, rather than on the underlying mental state or relationship between minds that they manifest. To understand freedom, then, is to understand how our minds work. It begins, then, with understanding ourselves and what we share with each other as human beings. I have organized the ingredients of this self-knowledge into the 5 principles that comprise Part 1 of this book: the subjectivity principle, the intentionality principle, the self-esteem principle, the expectations principle, the responsibility principle. In short, these principles point out that our knowledge and perception are subjective and personal, our behavior is intentional and goal-directed, our intentions are organized around achieving and enhancing our self-esteem, our behavior is guided by our expectations of its outcomes, and we are free to choose our goals and means and therefore are responsible for our future. A comprehension of these principles and their elements will provide an essential psychological foundation for the social and political material that follows, and so I will discuss each principle in turn.